Hi, this is HardballRetro. Welcome to the Retrodome. Today, we'll be doing a tutorial on how to create custom libraries in Digital Diamond Baseball version 13. I'm currently running version 13.1.2, but this, I would say, at least 95% of my methodology applies to versions going back at least probably version 10 or 11, maybe even further for most of these. There are some new features here that maybe weren't implemented back then, so I would suggest running the latest and greatest version. But again, if you do have, let's say, version 10, 11, 12, the majority of what I'm going to be uh, performing here will be still relevant. So, all right, let's take a look here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new library. Okay, so just show you briefly the libraries that I have here, and I do like to organize them in, by, uh, I like to group them, like these are the actuals, and this is some as played seasons, decades best team tournaments, drafts, originals, and year by year imports. So just to um, give some context around these, the actuals teams are teams that I've created based on like half decade, um, and they would be the top 40 players on each team. So given 2015 through 2019, let's say the top 40 players on whatever team. I base it on win shares. You could base it on WAR. You could base it on whatever you like. But that's how I do it. And I take the best season from uh, a specific player. So it might be well. Let's just jump into one of these real quick here. So if I go to roster tool. By the way, if you have an older version, roster tool is the new name for I think it was like view players. Um, all right, so you can see here we've got the Diamondbacks. So let's just scroll down a bit here. You can see I've imported the player photos. All right, so Paul Goldschmidt, 15. So that's his 2015 season. That was based on win shares. That was the best season of the five between 2015 and 2019 for Goldschmidt. So, and this is for the reason I call this actuals is it was the team that they were actually on during this period. So we could have some duplication here where you might have a player who appears on multiple teams, but they would be in different years most likely. I don't know any off the top of my head here. But let's say, just for example, Ketel Marte on the Diamondbacks, he might also appear. If we go to let's see if he's on the Mariners team. Hopefully, I didn't pre-plan what I'm doing right now, so I don't know if this is going to be valid or not. But let's pull up the Mariners. And there he is, Ketel Marte 2015, right? So I think he was 2019 D-backs. So he was in the top 40 players for the Mariners in this time frame. He was also in the top 40 for the D-backs. All right, so let's get out of this. Go back to libraries. And so the difference between actuals and originals, go to the same time frame here. I do have this one, 2015 through 2019 originals. Go to roster tool again. So the concept behind originals is something that I used in my first book, Hardball Retrospective. and that was basically a what if. What if I put every player on the first team that they signed a major league professional contract with, and then kept them on that team for the duration of their careers? All right, so let's look here. So you won't find Ketel Marte on the Diamondbacks here because that wasn't the first team that he signed a contract with. You will find Paul Goldschmidt here, and again, it's his 2015 season. So here's a good example. Carlos Gonzalez, right? Um, Without looking this up off the top of my head, I'm assuming he was probably a Rocky at this point. But for the purposes of the um, parameters that I'm using for originals, he's always a Diamondback. All right. So of the um, um, of the players that were in the top 40 for the original Diamondbacks, he qualifies here, and you'll kind of see this throughout. All right, Trevor Bauer. Okay, here's one, Max Scherzer. I don't recall off the top of my head where he was in 2016, but he was not with Arizona at that point. All right, Dansby Swanson. Here's another one, and so forth. Justin Upton. So again, originals is the player is basically pinned to the first franchise that they signed a MLB contract with. All right, so enough of that. Let's go out to, let's create a new library. All right, we'll open a different library. Okay, we're going to do new library. And one that I haven't built out yet is the 2000 through, let me cancel here. I just want to make sure I'm using, I'm just using the 2-digit year for the second part of this. So 2000 to 04 HB Retro Originals. And I think I have 2 dashes here somewhere. Let me check that. Did I do that? Dash, dash. Let me see if I do that consistently here. Yep. Again, this is just my naming convention. You can do it however you like. I do 2 hyphens here. All right, no big deal. Create whatever you want to call your library, right? So this is a custom library I'm building. Right now it's empty. I want to move it down to originals. Again, you can create your own groups. New library group is what you would use to create your own groups. All right, so now if I scroll down to my originals here, there we go. So we can click into this, and there's a couple parameters I want to set up right off the bat. So I'm going to go into library options. Some of these steps you could kind of do in a different order. Some of them it kind of requires that you do one thing before you do the next. But let's see, player picture options is going to be, my folder is going to be the same. I should have copied and pasted this. All right, but that's going to be my picture folder. I don't change anything else there. Let's see, what else do we have? Nothing else up here, I don't think. Okay, active roster. I want this to be random. I want that to be false. All right, this one's kind of important. If you are setting your own opening day rosters, you want to set this to false because otherwise the computer manager will start messing with your opening day rosters, and you don't want that to happen. At least me in particular, I don't want my opening day rosters changed from what I'm manually selecting who's on the opening day roster and who's active for day one. And then what this active roster feature will do is it will start to randomly activate and deactivate some players and that's just to give a little bit of randomness to the season and also to give playing time to some of the folks that are not on the 25-man roster at the start of the year. All right, so it's almost like we're simulating injuries and transactions here. Deactivation bias, I changed that to 1.0. Again, you can click on the help for these and see what all these settings are and if you want to tweak them or not. And transaction count, I don't want it to be overly um, activating and deactivating players, so I do change this down to from the default of 3 down to 1. Random factor, you can tweak that as well. And then to get 25, 25 on my roster, I generally do this: 5 starters, 5 relievers, 2 catchers, 2 first base, 2 second, 2 third, 2 short, right? So that is 10. 2, 2, 2, 2 is 20. And then 1, 2, 1, 1. That should give me 25 man. All right. Again, change this however you like. If this is just my preference here. Hit OK to that. What else do I have? Miscellaneous. What do I do here? Add year to last name. True. Okay. If I don't do that, I don't get the, like we saw earlier, Paul Goldschmidt -15. I like to know which year that I'm using, especially since I'm using 5-year chunks. So without doing this, I'd have to drill down into each player and see the year. This actually displays the 2-digit year, so I'll know that it's Paul Goldschmidt 15, Ketel Marte 19, so forth. All right, hit OK to that. And let me just check while I'm in here. I think I do maybe a couple other things. So for the actuals and originals, it's sometimes necessary for pitchers who were starters for the entire year to be relievers. So I set that to 0. Don't change anything else there. Let me see. Advanced playing time limits. Okay, so again, this is up to you. However you want to use the usage limits. For the actuals, I think I keep this as true, but for the originals, I set it to false. The reason I do that is with the originals, there are certain teams where they have players who barely meet the requirements, or for me, like to be on the active roster, I like to have players with at least 5 win shares. And when they don't meet that criteria, I will sometimes add a fill-in player from one of the other teams, a player that didn't make their 40-man roster. And I'll put a little plus sign in their last name so I know that they're a fill-in. But at any rate, yeah, sometimes you might have 2 catchers, and combined they only have like 300 plate appearances. You might have a shortfall with starters or relievers. So therefore, I don't enforce the usage limits for the originals libraries, but I do on the actuals, because generally on the actuals you won't run into that issue because somebody's played enough at every position, because you're using actual players in a 5-year period. All right, so at any rate, that's that. Let's see, add year to last name. I did that. Okay, I think I'm good here. We're going to get out of options. All right, now let's see. We're going to go to Ballpark Editor. Ballpark Editor is, there it is. All right. All right, you can see there's the neutral ballpark, because this is a brand new library, there are no ballparks. So what I do is go to import, and I'm going to point it to my Seamheads Ballpark database. And those are my logos. That's not what I'm looking for. I want to go to Seamheads. Again, this is wherever, if you download the Ballparks database from Seamheads, and this is wherever you extract that file to. And I'm selecting that file name, open. All right, and the park year. So what I'm doing here is with the originals, since I have 5-year periods, I'm generally going up with the park year, kind of the last year in the particular library. So the last year here is 2004. So that way I get the ballpark that was most recent for whatever team it is. Click import. That's going to pull all your parks in, but you don't have the images yet. So let's just grab an image for one of these just as an example. Edit park, daytime and nighttime image. We're going to click in here. I'm going to go back to my digital diamond folder. I've got a ballparks under there. And I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to find Anaheim. There it is. All right. I'm not overly concerned with day and night image, so I just put the same one in both. If you have different daytime and nighttime photos, go ahead and put them in here. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but just to show you how to do this, edit layout. All right, so I'm not going to move these guys around because they're where I want them, but you can move around the positions so that they're spaced differently on the field if you like, and then you would save it. I'm going to cancel out of that. So basically you just repeat this process for each ballpark. I'll do one more here just so you get the idea. Busch Stadium, we're looking for, again, 2000 to 2004, so we're still using Busch Stadium 2, which is that one. All right, if you're using the new Busch Stadium, the current one, you would select this guy here, the 2013 file. Okay, and we're good. All right. Okay. So again, repeat this process to get all the pictures imported, and then check your layouts. Your layouts should work for those ballparks for every library that you do. So if you've already done this, you don't have to keep doing it when you create a new library. All right, next we do, let's see, we're going to do player editor. Okay. I'm going to, let's see, should we do one here? Yeah, I'm going to go to a different library. This is one that's in progress. So let's go to 9599. All right. Player editor. So I'm currently working on the 95 through 99 Phillies. If I look in free agent, you'll see that most of them are populated here. All right, but I've got 3 more to go. So let's go ahead and import them. There's a variety of ways that you can import, but this feature in particular is new to version 13. So the import players from Layman database isn't new, but this import just this player part is new. All right, so let me, I have my, all of my rosters for my originals and actuals in an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm able to import those players because, again, they're specific seasons that I want, right? When I'm doing this, I want to do include splits, keep that checked. I want to put a check mark next to place on free agent team. and I want to do delete empty teams. The reason I'm doing that is this is going to import this player. You want to select all of these teams because you don't know if the player that you're entering, he may be on multiple teams. So you're going to do this, and then the delete empty teams is going to delete out any of these empty teams that it creates during this process. All right. Um, so let's see, who am I working with here? I've got 3 more to go for the Phillies, so let's do this. We got Jason Grimsley is next up. All right, so I'm going to copy and paste his baseball reference ID in here. And I'm going to click import. Are you sure you want to import players from the year 1999? Yes. Again, since I'm doing multiple years, this is important to check. Like if I'm doing 1995, I get through all of 1995 players for a particular team. I need to go up to this tab and then select 1996. Otherwise, I'm going to keep importing those players potentially from their 1995 season, and then I've got a little bit of a mess that I need to clean up once I realize that I've done that. And I've done that a few times, but here we go. So let's import. Okay. And we need to wait while it's chugging through. You'll see at the bottom here, importing Boston, CHA, CHN, and so forth. And you'll see the progress bar down here. So while this is on the please wait screen, I'm going to grab the next player's ID that I need, and that's Randy Wolf. So we're ready to go when this completes. This does take a bit of time, and I have put in a suggestion with the developer, Mark Cohen, Digital Diamond creator. I have asked Mark if there's a way to do or to add to this feature a way to import multiple players at once. So that might be on the drawing board for a later update. But for now, you've got to do one at a time with this particular method. I'm going to show you an alternate method as well in a moment. Let's see. Okay, Randy Wolf. And we'll let that chug through Randy Wolf. And I'll bring up the last player that I need. And then we can assign players to the Phillies here. Carlton Lower is the last guy we need. So we'll go ahead and do that. But there are multiple ways of getting players into your libraries here. So this one works well for me because the way that I've generated my teams, I do have I actually used, I think, the layman ID, not the baseball reference ID. So every once in a while, I have to double check the ID for a player. It'll say 0 players created, and I'll realize that the baseball reference ID for that player is slightly different. For example, like BJ Ryan, it's in the layman database, it would just be Ryan BJ01, for example. And in baseball reference world, it's Ryan B period, or Charlie O'Brien. On the layman side, there's no apostrophe. On the baseball reference side, there is. So again, those are some of the things I need to be aware of. All right, last guy, and then we'll add all of these free agents to the Phillies. And then I would proceed forward with the next team on my list, which is the Pirates. We're not going to do that here, but this is just an example of how to do this type of import. So just so you can see, okay, you can imagine that I've done this for 40 players on the Phillies. And then, like I've got this check mark here, place on free agent team. All right, so all of these guys are going to be on the free agent, the FR agent team. The next step when I get out of here is I have to do uh, combine players that were on multiple teams, and those players are going to transfer over to the TOT team. So show you all this in one moment here. And the other thing I do is I edit some of the player names so they match up with the player photos, and add some middle initials, that type of thing. So we're going to close that. All right, we're back on the player editor screen. I'm going to click on Edit All, and here we go, Combine All Duplicate Players. Yes, I do. All right. And now if I go to the TOT team, all right, these are all the guys that were duplicates on the 95 through 99 Phillies. Here's somebody who I edited already, Wayne Kirby. He's a fill-in guy. All right, so these guys are all on that team. I need to see. I'm just looking at my Excel file if there's anybody with middle initials or any other settings that I need to change. So Bobby Estelela, Bobby M. Estelela, PJ Smith. Looks like that's it. Okay. So let's go over to free agent, FR agent. All right. Here's a couple other fill-ins, Sherman Obando, Tom Prince. All right, so Pete Smith, we're going to call him Pete J. Smith. If the first and last name don't match exactly, it makes it difficult to match up their player photos. So that's one of the reasons I do this. Save changes to him. And Bobby Estelela, Bobby M, because his father played back in the day. All right, we're good there. Now we head over to Roster Tool. And we're on the Angels here, but we want to go scroll down. Actually, sorry, I need to do one other step here. Got ahead of myself. Team Editor. So you can see here I've built out most of the teams, but not all of them. The reason that I didn't create the Phillies, for example, is that I had that option, delete empty teams. So if the Phillies didn't have any players, it would have deleted my team anyway. So I just wait until I'm done importing all of the Phillies in the player editor, and then I create them. So Philadelphia Phillies. And year I put 9599 here because that's the library I'm using. Tag PHI. Logo. I'm in the Ballpark folder. I got to go to logos. I've downloaded logos here from various years, 1990s. And we're going to pick the Phillies 92 logo because that's the most recent one. That's the one they used from 95 through 99. So we're going to grab that. Ballpark is going to be Veterans Stadium. You can change these. I don't really mess with the team colors. You can change them if you want. All right, so now if I go down here, there's the Phillies, there's their ballpark. And now I can move the free agents and the duplicate players over to the Phillies. And using this method, I do this after I'm done importing players for each team. I don't do multiple teams at once because then it gets messy as far as who's listed in free agents. Right, so just for to alleviate confusion, I do kind of one team at a time. All right, so select all. And what I want to do is roster moves, move, and I'm moving the players to the Phillies. And I selected the A's accidentally. There we go, Phillies. Make sure you have the right team there, obviously. Hit OK. All right, so that was all the duplicate players. They all wind up in TOT. Free agent. Now we select free agent. Okay. All right. Same deal. Select all. Moves. Move. Phillies. Okay. All right. Now there's nobody in free agent. There's nobody in TOT. All right. And just to check my work now, I go to Phillies, and there should be, because we had several fill-ins, I think there's going to be 43 here. Let's see what we have. Scroll down to the bottom, and there's 42. So now I have to see if I missed somebody. Let's see here. That's certainly possible. Well, you know what? I'm not going to do that right now, but I would have to go back and check my work. I think I missed one player, so I'll fix that later. For the purposes of our tutorial here, not that important that I have it exactly right. All right, so basically you would repeat those steps, importing team editor, creating one team, roster tool, moving the players. All right. And also with player editor, remembering to combine, if that's what you would like to do, you combine all the stats for players that were on multiple teams in a given year. And you would edit the player names if you wish to do that as well. As far as the middle initials, I remove the periods from middle initials and so forth. Okay, let's go to, I'm going to go to a different library, maybe one that's already built here. So we had, we were looking at 2015, 2019 already. So I'm not going to make any changes here, but I'll just show you organization editor. All right, so I've gone in already and assigned the teams AL, NL. I do the DH rule for both. Let's see here. Edit, show the calibration options. And then I usually, again, we're currently looking at 2015 through 2019. I do look at or I generally will pick something in the middle, maybe the middle season of the 5 for the league averages. All right, so again, I've got everything assigned here, got the league names, the division names, and so forth. So my organization is built. On my new library, I would do that after I have all of the teams created. Schedule editor, let's look at that here. Again, I'm not going to do this because the schedule's already imported, but I will show you what I do. Okay. Actually, I can't show you all of this because I can't pull up my Excel window here. But what I will do is I will open up a schedule. I think, let's look here, import schedule. I'm not going to actually do it. But out in this schedules folder, I basically grab the schedule and I clean it up so that it's just these, I believe these 4 fields. I wipe out all the other, as played lineups and all the other stuff that comes with. So I just have these 4 fields in a CSV file, and then I import it. Close out of that. All right. Let's see. Import player photos. I think we already, we set up the player picture subfolder. I'm not going to go through this whole process, but what I do when I have all the teams built, I'll go to player editor. This might be a topic for another video. As of right now, well, in this particular library, I've probably already set up the active and the opening day rosters. But what you want to do is before you do that, you have all the players on their teams. Everybody on the 40-man roster for each team is on the opening day roster at that point. So what I do is I export opening day rosters. All right, it drops that out to a file under your Digital Diamond folder under, I think under exports, maybe transactions somewhere out there. And I created a custom script in R that basically loops through all of those players. It tries to match it up with a player in my FacePack directory, and it then copies those photos into the new player picture subfolder. All right, so it seems to work pretty well, and then it also gives me like an exception report, the ones that it missed, and I have to manually locate those pictures and copy them in. It's a little tedious, but it probably gets about 90 to 95% of the player photos on the first shot, so that seems to be working well for me. All right, once you get your player photos in, let's see, I did that already. So at that point, I'll generally back up my library. Let's see, you just click on backup. Okay, then I go in and configure my opening day rosters and active players. That's under roster tool. I'm not going to mess with this because I've already done it, but I'll just show you how you would do it. All right, so if you look right now, again, we'll use the Diamondbacks as the example. All right, there's 41 players on the Diamondbacks. If I go to status here, where it says any status, if I click on opening day, all right, now my list changed, and now I have 25 players here. And I can uncheck that, and then I can click on not opening day, and it'll show me the 16 guys that are not on the opening day roster. All right, 16, 25 equals 41. So, so let's say I wanted, let's go back to select. Let's just unselect that. So it's any status, right? So let's say I wanted Jake Barrett active, and I want to swap him out with Tony Barnett, right? I can click on each guy holding down the control button to select both or multiple people, whatever I want to do here, right? Let's just say those two. Go to roster moves, and I can toggle opening day roster, and I can toggle active here. So if I were to click on this, it would swap their opening day roster status for both players. All right. So let's see here. Roster moves. All right. So let's assume that we've done that. We've moved every player that you want to active or inactive status, and figured out whether you want them on your opening day roster or not. All right. Next thing I do is manage your profiles, and we'll stay in the 2015 to 2019 library here because I've already got these configured. All right. Another thing you can look at here is playing time limits are currently disabled. As I mentioned, I don't want them enabled for my originals, but for active, for the actuals and for some of my other libraries, I will keep that enabled. All right. Lineups. I want to specify lineups myself. I like to create a verse righty, verse lefty DH. These I don't care about because my originals and actuals libraries, um, both leagues have the DH. All right, so I just disregard this part here. Whatever's there, it really doesn't matter. Um, so here, once I select this setting, and I usually do populate based on ability just to give me kind of a base lineup, and then I go in and edit. All right, so go into here, edit my lineups. All right, again, I'm not going to make any changes here, but if I wanted to, I would click on bench so I can see my bench players. I will do where it says show 5 entries, I'll do 10 because sometimes there's 6 guys on the bench and you're like, uh, you think you're missing somebody, but it's just because you're only viewing the first 5. So I'll generally go down here, change that to 10. And then if I wanted to make a substitution, which I'm not going to do, but just for example, let's say I want Mark Reynolds in the lineup and I want him to be let's say I want him to be the third baseman. Nope, he doesn't qualify at third that year. He qualifies at first, DH, and left field. Let's say I want him to be the DH. Right. So I would just insert him, add him to the lineup in the second slot, and then I would probably move him down because he's not a number 2 hitter. Adjust your lineup as needed. You got the up down buttons here. You got the positions. The player, whoever you select, it lights up what positions they qualify for. So when you're done, just hit OK. All right. Scroll down a little bit here. Bench utilization. Let the computer manage lineup substitutions at the start of each game. Again, you can change that if you want to manage them, but I usually allow the computer to do it because a lot of times I'm simulating multiple seasons. I don't want to sit here and manage lineup substitutions at the start of each game. That would just be way too cumbersome. I don't change the E-war limit. I do change the substitution rate. I forget what the default is, but I set it to 10. Max substitutions I set to 1. I don't want the computer going crazy making substitutions. This one I've kind of questioned whether I want it true or false. I have it set to false now because I don't like some of the lineups it generates um, after someone is substituted in. So I'm kind of willing to. I'd rather have one player kind of bat in the wrong spot in the lineup rather than have my whole lineup shaken up and potentially not in the order that I set. Again, personal preference. Use what you like there. Use split stats. I keep as true. Pinch hitters. The only thing I change here is I think I changed this from 8th to 7th inning. Yeah, I don't think I did anything differently here. I might have done the same with pinch runner. I don't know. All right. Starting rotation. I want to specify my own rotation and spot starters. And again, this is something I've messed with a little bit as far as these settings. The rotation size for these seasons I keep at 5. For maybe 1920 and prior, I might go to a 4-man. How often do you want a spot starter for each of these guys? Again, you can tweak this. I generally keep the defaults there. Rotation, same deal. Just click on edit. And once this list comes up, all right, so let's say if I wanted, I don't know, let's pick somebody here. Let's say I wanted Mike Bolsinger in instead of Brett Anderson. I would just highlight him, hit add. He's going to be added in the 5th slot, and then I can move him up or down if I want. Same with these guys. I can just highlight one of these guys, move them down, move them up. Hit OK when you're done. Spot starters. I will throw everybody that has at least one start into the spot starter mix, and I will generally rank them in the number of game starts that they have, not based on their ability or anything like that. So, assuming Wade Miley had 30 plus starts, and maybe De La Rosa did as well, but one had 33 and one had 32 or something, and maybe Bolsinger has 18, or, so forth. Bullpen. I want to specify my bullpen. Use closer. This is basically whether the computer manager is going to bring the closer in, um, regardless of whether the starter is still um, healthy enough to continue in the ninth inning. This is kind of a, you could tweak this here. I leave it as enabled. Average pen usage. Older seasons, I would probably go reluctant to go to the pen, and 1920 and prior, probably very reluctant to go to pen, so forth. Um, and then I don't know if I even bother doing this populate based on ability. I think I just start setting up, selecting who my closer is, who my setup man is, um, so on and so forth. Um, General rule of thumb with my long relief is they're either starters that um, kind of fell into the bullpen based on their win shares. They didn't make the rotation, but their win shares are potentially better than some of the relievers on the team. So that's the case here with Miley and De La Rosa. Cole Mentor, he's probably got, let's just pull him up here. Yeah, 44 games, 12 starts. So what I look for here for long relief is generally a kind of a 2 innings to 1 game ratio. Uh, so Cole Mentor is definitely over that, right? So 44 games, 88 innings. He's at 121. So that's how that's my deciding factor, is whether somebody is a long reliever or middle relief. These, I don't generally mess with this, at least for my seasons here, but again, you can tweak the base stealing, base running, and so forth down here for a manager's tendencies. So again, I build out these profiles for each team. Exit here when I'm done. Trying to think if there's anything else. I think at that point I'm pretty much done with the custom library, and then I'll just I'll start playing scheduled games, playing a full season. Um, that is one other thing I can show you, is that I go back into schedule editor for a second here. So if I want to run multiple seasons, right? So you can see over here 1502. You might be wondering, that's an odd looking date, right? Where is it? So you can go to set year. All right. So if I want to run 10 seasons, I might do the first year I would call 1501 because it's 2015 through 2019. So I just use kind of the last 2 digits of the first year in my library. So I would do 1501, 1502, 1503, so forth every time I decide to run a new season. All right. I'm going to exit out of this. Will it let me? There we go. Okay. I didn't want to mess with that. And then you do the encyclopedia. You can point, I haven't done so yet, but you create a new encyclopedia name. You associate it with this library. And then when your season's done, you hit the update button. Yeah, I think because I just installed version 13 within the last month or so, I haven't really done any of these. But basically, you can compile the statistics over multiple simulations using the encyclopedia feature. So I think I'm going to wrap it up here. Hopefully, if you haven't created any custom libraries with Digital Diamond. I hope this tutorial is helpful. If you have any questions, post them in the comments. And yeah, I think that about does it for me here. So again, thanks for watching. Keep playing ball. Take care, and we'll see you soon.